For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Hello and welcome to Long Shots Golf Betting Podcast here on the VSiN Podcast Network. Matt Brown, Kelley Bydlon, Wes Reynolds coming to you. It is already week number 2 here of the golf season. Last week, look, I think we were in and or around, some things, but when a guy goes 35 under, it just kind of is what it is. I mean, 65, 65, 62, 65 for Hideki Matsuyama, and he gets it done at 35 under, 3 strokes clear of Collin Morikawa, who went 32 under. I mean, never again will Collin Morikawa shoot 30 under par and not win a tournament. But here we are, Sung J M at 29 under, a full 6 strokes off the winner, finishes outright third. Johnny Vegas, Ludwig Oberg, we got Corey Connors, Thomas Dietrich, Sam Burns ends up going really low 3 rounds in a row. Unfortunately, didn't put himself in a good position after round 1, but anybody that played some Burns inside that top 10, at least you got that home. Mav McNeely, Cam Young, Tom Hoagie, and Harry Hall were all tied T8 at 23 under. And Wes, as you mentioned, you go all the way down and you're like, dude, can you imagine shooting 20 under for a tournament? Yeah, 20 under. It's a T24 in this damn tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is, I guess, my payback personally for when I had Cameron Smith a couple of years ago and he shot 34 under. And if you had John Rahm and he was 33 under par and he still lost, that's how I feel having Collin Morikawa at 32 under. Just Matsuyama hold out for that eagle on the par 4, I believe, on number 3 on Sunday, and that was a wrap. He had established a multiple shot lead because they both shot, I believe, 62 on Saturday. So that's 11 under at the par 73 at Kapalua. And Morikawa could never gain. When you shoot 62 and you don't gain because your playing competitors shoot 62. So Matsuyama looked very well done. The iron play was just absolutely on point. And Morikawa just a little bit off on Sunday, and that was enough to get a 3-shot win for Hideki.
Kelley, one of the things that you look at, and it's not going to surprise anybody if you've been a golf bettor or a DFS player or whatever for a long time and see that Hideki was second in the field for approach. That's not the thing. The third in putting is the thing to pay attention to here, because there was an interview with him that basically he saw everybody going to these mid-head like putters where it's not mounted on the toe, it's like mounted in the center, and he went to Scotty Cameron and said, hey, can you make me one of these? I want to try it out. So he goes in, he gets the putter, now he's third in the field. We'll see, but he gave a lot of love to the putter, and so that does make me wonder at least a little bit here, because if Hideki has found the putter, Kelley, it is bad news for everybody else not named Scotty Scheffler, because this dude, his biggest thing every week is we'd sit here and go, if he could make a putt, if he could putt it in the ocean, this guy would have finished top 5. This guy would have finished top 3. This guy would have won the tournament, et cetera, et cetera. And we get used to seeing him at the top of the strokes gained from an approach standpoint, but with the putter could be interesting to monitor.
Yes, it's a scary thought. Like you said, Hideki, if he can put that as a consistent part of his game, it somehow reaches a whole nother level. He was messing around with that. What was it in the playoffs or whatever at the end of the year? Remember, it was one tournament I had to take it on him where he was talking about switching putters like midway through the third round. Or it was after the third round or something. I remember going nuts about. This is everybody gets to take a little time and tinker with some equipment and everything and swings and everything like that during their little off season. And we'll see what Decky, if this is something here to stay. Completely different putting surface that he's going to see this week at the Sony compared to what we saw last week as far as the undulations and size of the green and stuff go. Still Bermuda, but heck of a performance, and golf betting's back when you, Wes and I, our first outrights of the year come in second place. So yeah, well, let's go golf season. Yay.
Three guys we'll touch on just real quick, and then we'll head into this week, but three different guys, T26, three different guys at 19 under, three different guys that are going to be very interesting to monitor this year. Justin Thomas, Max Homa, and Will Zalatoris all come in at 19 under. Again, that was only good for T26. However, you get Max Homa, makes the equipment change after a really down year for him. At least he's able to go out and string together 4 good rounds of golf. You have Justin Thomas as one of the hottest names as far as is he going to make the comeback this year as well. And then Will Zalatoris talking about putting on 20 pounds of muscle in the offseason to kind of help out with not only just keeping up with the times, but keeping his back a little bit stronger, making sure that he's able to stay healthy this season as well. So 3 different guys, again, fellas, they put together 4 good rounds. It's just not near good enough whenever everybody's just lighting the course on fire. But something that we'll monitor here over the early part of the season as well. And maybe these guys become either overvalued or undervalued or whatever it might be. And maybe we can take advantage of that in the betting market.
I got to give mention one other player too. I'm just looking at the numbers here last week. How about Ludwig Aubert, who T5, 24 under, 31 of 60 fairways he hit. Like, drove the ball really poorly and still shot 24 under.
In massive fairways, too.
Yes. Cameron Young actually was also 31 of 60 on the fairways. He finishes one behind him, 23 under T8. I was just looking at that, and that astounded me. How poorly. Cameron Young, by the way, also lost like 5 shots on approach and still shot 23 under.
Yeah, one of his better putting performances, right, that we've seen. But it was, I think just, that reinforces the note we talked about last week on the pod, right? It is the least pedal rough on tour. Clearly, that didn't matter. Did not matter very much for a lot of those guys. I think I'm going to call BS on the Zalatoris 20 pounds, Matt. I don't know. I heard that on the broadcast, too, and I was like, I don't know. Sure doesn't look like that skinny body's put on 20 more pounds than anything.
Dude,
but okay.
He was like $160. He only's got to weigh 180. It's not like he's going to look thick out there or whatever. I mean, he literally weighed like 160 pounds.
They brought that up on the broadcast. I was like, I see no difference. Yeah, but that's the point. When you weigh 160 pounds, 20 pounds should look like you put on a ton. I don't. Biggest takeaway, guys. I mean, yes, is Matsuyama in the putting, and man, it's him winning that's more frustrating for me, Wes, than Morikawa coming in second, because Matsuyama had to have been one of, if not my most bet golfer last year, and I only bet him when he didn't win, and this is another situation where not only was I not on him, but now he's getting in the way of another guy I'm betting. So the Matsuyama frustration levels are quickly rising.
When I ran the stats actually from last season, because in my write-up I did last season, a full season, then I did how they did last week at the Century, so keep in mind those numbers a little bit deceptive, but I looked where Matsuyama, he was up there in approach in terms of in this week's field, a couple of the proximities, he was very good last year, the good, some of the around the green especially. He led the PGA Tour actually in around the green, and he was up there in all these stats. I'm like, how did he not win more last year?
He popped every single week. I ran numbers every week.
Sometimes the numbers lie to you, I guess, but just didn't win frequently for a guy that was like up there in all those statistical categories, which was very surprising to me.
Guys, as we get going here, remember one and done season is getting started as well. No, we're not going to go into in-depth here because there are tons of strategy articles that are written out there. So go in there, dive into all the different ways that you can go about one and done. But just remember, the size of the pool changes your strategy in these. If you're in one with your buddies and it's only 10, 12, 20 of y'all, that's way different than if you're in one of these real big ones out there with thousands of players. So just keep that in mind. We saw amateurs win on the tour last year. Remember, they get 0 prize money, so don't pick an amateur. Don't do that.
Good call.
Yeah. They don't get any prize money, so don't pick an amateur. And then, of course, just kind of plan how you want to go about it with the majors, the players, the signature events, and stuff like that, because those are all worth way more money. And sometimes a guy finishing in 5th place in one of those tournaments is getting about the same money as you're getting for winning some of these smaller events. And so just something to think about along the way, kind of planning your season out. We talk about that often if you're playing in a survivor pool in the NFL, right? You're trying to figure out which teams you want to use which week. You can also do that with golf. Sure, injuries may occur and it may throw you off a little bit, but it's not quite as common as you get in some of these other sports. And so again, just majors, players, and signature events. Kelley, I know you and I joined up. Wes is going to join up after we get off here recording this. And, listen, we'll talk about how we're doing throughout the course of the week. I've cashed both years in the big one out there that Pat Mayo puts on. And so see if I can't.
Look at you.
See if I can't get up a little bit higher, though, this year, because the payout has basically been a steak dinner.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The like you said, strategy, there's a lot. Just kind of like Survivor, you can go on and on with trying to map out what you want to do with the season. I was going to jump in, though. It makes it a lot easier if you just pick a few winners, though. So, it's just pick guys who win the tournament, and then it makes it a lot easier on you throughout the rest of the season.
That's all you got to do.
It's all you got to do, Wes. It's really all you got to do.
Well, the problem is that Scotty won so many damn times last year that you couldn't pick multiple winners hardly.
Yeah, that's true.
You can only use it once. Like, you can go.
Scotty felt like the NFL this year. If you're somebody that likes to play a lot of favorites, you did very well in the NFL this season, especially from week 5 and beyond. Because I had a lot of guys that are pretty sharp historically in the NFL. Like, man, I'm getting killed this year. I was like, that's how I felt betting against Scotty Scheffler all the time last year.
Yeah,
welcome to my world.
It's one of those too for me. I mean, for sure, that's the only dead for sure 1,000% strategy that I know right now is that I'm going to use Scotty in one of the like big tournaments. Like he might win somewhere along the way. I don't care. His win equity is so incredibly high in all of these other tournaments that I'm going to make sure that when he wins, hopefully I'm getting the full, 3.6 million or whatever it might be for first place and not one of these like 1.4 million type wins that he's going to get. So we'll talk about one and done throughout the course of the season as well. But just want to remind you guys, sign up period is hot and heavy out there right now, and might want to get in if you haven't done so already. This week's tournament, we stay over in Hawaii, the Sony Open at Waialae Country Club in Honolulu. This is a full field real event here. So we're getting 156 players in this puppy. Now, it is not all of the guys that played last week. Some of these guys are heading over, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of them are going to be playing the TGL. But par 70, 7,044-yard course here, Wes, that should still see some decent scores, but nothing like we saw last week.
Yeah, 35 players, by the way, that played at Kapalua last week will be in this event. Of course, that's increased because, as we explained last week, the Century Field is a lot bigger. It's not just the tournament winners. Now it's the top 50 in the FedEx Cup. So you ended up, I think, having 59 players with the Noren withdrawal last week. A pretty good field, though. Maybe not a lot of stars at the top this week, but 20 of the top 50 in the official World Golf Ranking, by the way, in this field. So they're trying to get the FedEx points for the Swing 5 to get into Pebble Beach, which is the next signature event. And Matt, you mentioned Waialae, par 70, 70-44. Second shot golf course, as cliche as that sounds, but that's what it is. It's a shot maker's golf course. I think like 6 dog legs on here. You have Bermuda rough. You got firm greens, but they're pretty flat and relatively easy to putt on. They are Bermuda, a little bit faster than what they saw at Kapalua last week. Kapalua was 10.5 on the stimp. This is about 11.5 on the stimp. You've got 3-inch Bermuda, which is kind of, it sticks to the club face a little bit, so it can be a little tricky. Tree line fairways, a lot of palm trees, 83 bunkers on the course, 4 water holes. So is a pretty flat course. So with a very short course, it's an easy walk. It's not going to be near as easy as the Plantation course at Kapalua was last week, but you can score low here. You've seen in the low to mid 20 unders, but you've also seen in the very low teens if the wind really blows. I think it was 2020, I remember, when Smith won. 11 under was the winning score. The winning score, of course, last year, 17 under from the late Grayson Murray. They did a ceremony, I believe, today out at Waialae today with his family. Of course, Grayson passed away over the last summer. He won the playoff last year over Keegan Bradley and Benny On. So they had that going today to raise money for their foundation that they've set up. So probably looking, I'm guessing, high teens here because I think the wind's going to blow. So you may get around 14, 15 under could be the winning score this week.
Kelley, it is a course that, not like last week, we're going to see some less than driver holes here. We're going to see guys that aren't just going to be just gripping it and ripping it and things like that. So we have seen, all kinds of different winners here with all of this. And so I think it is something that, as we talk about the stats that we find important to us and the stuff that we plugged into the models and whatnot this week, that unlike last week where, we weren't too worried about people and how they drove it because it wasn't very bad if you missed the fairways as it was anyway. Not necessarily the case here. And as Wes mentioned, whenever you get into the kind of the thicker Bermuda, if you guys have ever played any of these Bermuda courses, you don't really exactly know how the ball's going to come out. It really does depend on how it lies in there for you. And so you really don't want to be in it because one of the things you actually can't control is, if you keep in the fairway, you know how the ball's going to fly, as opposed to getting some of these 3-inch, if it sits down in there and whatnot, it's going to be real tough to control.
Yeah, and it's, a little bit longer than what we've seen here before in the past, that rough grown out to, and it's going to grow for 4 days too. So who knows what it's playing like on that final round. So yeah, it's definitely if you're a golf bettor and you listen to a lot of golf podcasts or you read a lot of golf content, you're going to you've heard this every single year, but these two courses are very, very different from each other in Hawaii when we go from the Century to the Sony. And it's everything you just said, right? We talked about it earlier. You didn't have to worry about going in the rough last week or hitting fairway. It's ultra important that you're staying in the fairway and playing out of that this week and avoiding that long rough for second shot, because it is a second shot heavy course. It's going to be very important what your approach shots look like. We've even kind of got the different proximity ranges are pretty set in stone of what we're going to see most of these guys hitting this week as far as that kind of 125 to 200 yard range on approach. Look, the greens are very different, right? These are still pretty sizable greens on average, but you don't have the same kind of undulations and everything that we were seeing last week. So very different courses. And yes, I think it starts with off the tee, because we talk about approach every week, Matt, right? We talk about how important that is every single week. And yes, there's a premium on it at this course, but the off the tee game is completely different. You do have to look at some guys that are a little bit more accurate this week.
They've been playing this tournament here forever, so a lot of guys have played this thing multiple times. It is a pretty sticky course as well, so if you are plugging stuff in to your model, we have, over the last 5 years, 16 different guys have multiple top 15 finishes here at the Sony, so a lot of guys that have played this course and played it pretty well as of recent, right? Again, this is just in the last 5 years. Corey Connors, Matt Kuchar, Hideki, Chris Kirk, Ryan Palmer, Andrew Putnam, Russell Henley, Hayden Buckley, Keith Mitchell, Webb Simpson, Nick Taylor, Keegan Bradley, Patton Kizzire, Benny On, and then Taylor Montgomery all have multiple top 15s just in the past 5 years here at this tournament. So a little bit of stuff that we can take with us with all of that. But Wes, let's kick things off here for the people out there that do like to model along with us. What did you throw into your model this week to kind of get the stats you were looking for?
Yeah, and kind of a more traditional thing here because the course is a little bit shorter. Fairways, not narrow, but not exactly wide, as Kelley mentioned. So I did do approach, just your basic boilerplate approach. You don't have to, be number one to win on approach. Grayson Murray certainly was not last year, but Siwoo Kim ranked number one in the field on approach in the category 2 years ago when he won. So you've got a lot of back to front sloping greens. Some of the pins get tucked into the very corners of the greens. So you got to be pretty precise with the iron. So strokes gained approach. And then I did a couple different proximities this week because 2/3 of the approach shots are going to be, now this is a pretty wide range here, 125 to 200. So I broke them down a little bit, 125 to 150, 150 to 175, 175 to 200. Also did, from a driving perspective, I did not really do accuracy as much, even though it's about 4% less here than I think the PGA Tour average, but I went with good drives. I went with good drive percentage or good drives gained, however you want to determine, because there might be times you miss the fairway and you get into those tight corridors, but you can still reach the green. So I did good drive percentage. Also strokes gained under 7,200 yards because players are going to club down here. When Justin Thomas won here a few years ago, he hit a lot of 2 irons, didn't hardly hit driver at all. So you're going to see a lot of guys, not necessarily used driver. Now, some will try to cut corners on them dog leg holes where there are 6 of them here on this layout. So you could certainly see that. Birdie or better, but I especially emphasize par 4 birdie or better because of par 70. So 12 of the 18 holes are going to be par 4s. One is as short as 351. One is as long as 480. So pretty wide range there. I did strokes gained around the green because you got that tricky Bermuda rough around these grainy greens. And then I did a little strokes gained putting Bermuda as well because it's not always a putting contest, but if you look at recent results, when Matsuyama won here, he gained 7.3 in 2022. When Smith won here, it was 8.2 in 2020. Matt Kuchar won here in 2019. He gained about 7. So these are pretty flat and straightforwards, even though there's some grains in the greens, but not as much undulation, certainly, as you saw at Kapalua.
Kelley, I'll tell you one of the things I did in mine that you probably won't hear me do a ton throughout the course of the year. I backed this out to the last 60 rounds in my model. And the reason being is because I did narrow it down so much into courses on easy scoring conditions, short courses, things like that, to where I didn't want the sample to be so small, right? So I kind of backed this out to the last 60 rounds given these scoring conditions. So I will admit, the way that my model spit stuff out, it could have like 2-year-old stuff in it, right? I mean, because of the way that I went about it. But I do think that there is something to these guys that play these easy short courses better than most. And so that's why I did that. I just wanted to let everyone know whenever I go over, what spit out in the model, you're going to go like, that guy hadn't played good and whatever. And it's like, yeah, because some of this shit's like 2 years old. So yeah, I mean, so there is that. And that's why that happened with whatever. But how did you do stuff in your model?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We'll also bring up again a beginning of the season. I think this is always a good time to pull longer data sets in and look a little further back because we don't really have any recent form on anybody, right? Nobody's played tournaments, so we try to look for, like Matt's talking about, who's consistently good on a shorter course. Okay, it doesn't matter even if he's pulling data from a year and a half ago. He's just looking for who are the consistent players that keep showing up that play those courses well. So yeah, I did a little bit of that as well. Wes mentioned pretty much everything. I did off the tee, strokes gained off the tee, a mix of good drives, fairways, accuracy, any of the accuracy stats really plugged in there this week. Then strokes gained approach, that 125 to 200 yards Wes talked about. Par 4s, look at par 70, take away 2 par 5s. Everybody's going to score on these 2 par 5s that are out there anyways. So I think par 4 scoring is pretty important this week. Birdie or better, got to look at guys that are going to birdie. We're still going to be hovering around probably 20 below here for the tournament. And then strokes gained putting on Bermuda. We're back on Bermuda. I think it's still important to look at how these guys have putted on Bermuda. And that's another one. If you're doing something like that, or like what Matt talked about with the shorter courses, easier scoring conditions, just to pull longer data set from when these guys have really played a lot on Bermuda. So, yeah, that was pretty much everything I looked at. I don't go too overboard with this tournament. Every year, I think their tournament history should factor in a little bit more. I forget which one of you mentioned that. I think it was Matt. But yeah, we do have some sticky data here of guys that have played here before, or the guys that win here usually played it at least a couple times before. It's usually not their first appearance. So I do think that is a little bit more important than usual to look at this week. But that was pretty much everything. This is going to be, of course, we see guys, as long as you keep it in the fairway, can hit greens, go up there. It's going to be another putting contest. Whoever puts up big strokes gained putting is going to probably win this week.
Yeah. So basically same deal with you guys. I think the only thing maybe I did at least a little bit differently, I emphasize bogey avoidance a little bit heavier this week because I do look at it from a standpoint of, if you're not birdieing these, if we're looking at a score, let's just say that Wes is correct and we're mid-teens to maybe high teens, if you're not taking advantage of the birdie opportunity, I just sure as hell don't want you giving them back, right? And so you can just kind of stay in and or around striking distance and something. So I did put in bogey avoidance at least a little bit more, I think, maybe than you guys did. But outside of that, pretty much all of the same stuff as well. Guys, shout out again to the people that do these modeling things as we're getting new people following us here, which, by the way, If you're watching us over on YouTube, hello, This is what we look like. Thanks for being here. Thanks for finding us. Hit that subscribe button down below. All the reason in the world, everything we're doing on YouTube here, absolutely free. So go ahead, hit that there down below as well. And of course, on the audio side, subscribe, rate, review. You know the drill. You hear it on every podcast you listen to. So subscribe, rate, review. We do appreciate that. But yeah, Kelley, I mean, that's for me, that's where I am. I threw in a little bit of Wildlife as well, just as a tiebreaker. If there was anybody that was kind of on the fence, if they played here well before, then I'm kind of like, I'll throw some stuff in on them.
Yeah, I think this is one of those courses too of like, I don't even really care if you've played all that well here before. I just want to know you've played it just so you know what kind of golfing in Hawaii is like a little bit, right? I mean, you're going to get those coastal winds and everything on some of the holes. Some of the holes are not going to be like that at all. The difference between Maui and where we're at this week, Wailea, like it is completely different. So I think I just kind of wanted anybody that has played here before. Now there's one guy on my card I know that hasn't played here at all. So, it's somewhat important. I did want to go back, though, to that bogey avoidance stat you brought up, Matt, because I actually think this is a good course of looking at that, how we utilize these stats. And Wes brings up around the green. Around the green, I think it is one of the more important stats to look at this week for this course. I usually am the guy on this podcast, though, and I did it this week as well, if I'm able to look at really low scores, I don't really care then, because if you're hitting too many shots around the green, you're probably in trouble. Bogey avoidance, though, I think it's a good catch-all stat because you do get, maybe guys are struggling to scramble, right? Maybe it's a 3-putt avoidance. You can use this kind of in place of some of those certain stats. So I think it's just when you're looking at all these stats that are available from the tour website or any of the sites that we use, think about which ones can make sense week to week, and maybe some more so than others. But I think essentially you guys are kind of looking at the same thing, just two different stats.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well,
one thing I wanted to bring up, though, I know Matt brought up course history. Like when you monitor that, you obviously are at the course you're playing, like Wildlife this week. But if you're looking for maybe some comparable courses, there's the ones that are by the coast, Port Royal, which is Bermuda, the Pebble Beach, AT&T Pro-Am, Harbor Town for the Heritage, El Chameleon, now that was years ago when Mayakoba was still on the PGA Tour. Sea Island, which was the RSM Classic, the season finale down in Georgia. Sedgefield, I thought, had a little bit of a carryover here, which hosts the Wyndham. A lot of these, par 70s. Colonial is not really a similar course, but the length. So you could look maybe not just at the conditions, if they're by the coast or not, but also the length, who are really good on these, short par 70s at 7,000 yards or 7,100, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think that's Matt. I know you plugged that stuff in too. I probably should have looked at that a little bit deeper than I did this week. I think that stuff is more important at the beginning of a season too, to use comp courses and course history. Even if the course history isn't as sticky, it just gives you something else to go off of when you don't really know exactly what kind of form these guys are really in. Because a lot of times when we talk about these stat models that we're building out, we want to know how good guys have played over the past 4 or 5 tournaments usually, and you just don't have that data to draw off of right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, guys, we'll get you to our picks here in just a second, but we are recording this, and depending on when you listen, you might be able to catch the debut of the TGL, and if not, don't worry. There will be several events for you to go into. If you haven't heard about this, it's going to be on ESPN. It is an indoor / mixed use event deal where they're going to play in an arena and whatnot. So each team's going to have 3 players for each match. There's 4 players on each team. You start out by teeing off on a real grass tee box and hitting into a screen that is 64 feet by 53 feet. If you're wondering, that's about over 20 times larger than a standard golf simulator. So they're going to be hitting into a much, much, much larger screen. It's going to start again tonight on the 7th of January, but it goes all the way to March the 4th. It's a 15-hole match that is split into 2 different sessions. So it's 9 holes of alternating shot and then 6 holes of singles events in that. And so each hole is worth 1 point, no carryovers. If the 2 teams are tied at the end of regulation, you basically go into sudden death, which all 3 players will be just going closer to the pin, and the first team to get 2 of their 3 guys closer to the pin than the other team, that is how the the playoff will work in the season here. Each match is also going to have a 40-second shot clock, so it's going to move. It's going to move fast, and this is something that, this is almost like it wouldn't surprise me if the PGA kind of like poked them a little bit to just put this in here and see how this is received and see how it plays to try to speed up the play here. If you actually look in the recommended, rules of golf, like 40 seconds, the reason they even chose this is like, that's what people say, right? It's like the recommended, you shouldn't go longer than 40 seconds when you're hitting a shot. So that actually will be implemented here in the TGL. Got to hit it within that time frame or you get a 1-stroke penalty as well. And then guys, after they tee it off into this screen, right, which is out of a tee box, then shots that are 130 yards or longer, there's like a back tee box which they will hit into the screen or something, and then for shots that are 50 to 129, there's actually like a little front box for them to hit into the screen, which is actually closer to the screen, so you feel again like you're closer to the hole that you're actually.
What's the point of that one though, Matt? I did see Matt Berry do the complete walkthrough for this of ESPN. It was because Matt's actually doing it. Matt Brown is doing an excellent job trying to describe this right now, but you almost got to see it for yourself, I think, tonight. But I didn't get the point of the front. The front box, is that supposed to be more accurate because you're closer to the screen?
Yeah, I guess it's just to to make you feel like you're closer to the pin, because you
like closer to where
in theory you would be, right in the deal. They're doing whatever they can to make it feel as close as possible.
I can't wait to watch this. I really can't.
And then it goes into the green zone. No, not the show of years past here.
Not the show that the three of us all did.
Not 7 hours on Sunday, yes.
The green zone, it is 22,475 square foot short game area that actually transforms every single hole. So it will rotate. There's actually things underneath that changes the undulations or whatever that actually gives it a chance to be a different green for every single hole that they play. So I can't wait to see it. It's going to be ridiculously awesome to see how it all plays out and whatnot. And we should point out, you can bet on this. We have not, because again, I don't bet on something that I have
Speak for yourself.
Seen. No. Oh yeah. Well,
I'm playing. I didn't bet on it. I do want to watch it.
It's fine.
I don't think any of us are ruling out betting on it in the future, though. I just want to see how this is gonna work first.
That's where I was going with this. It's like, Wes writes up the articles over at vsin.com that you're not going to find anything on this because we don't really know what the hell it is yet. But like, hey, give us 2 or 3 weeks of seeing what it's all about, and maybe there's some bets to be made. Who knows?
It's got some stars in it, though, by the way. The first matchup tonight is, I believe, the New York Golf Club against the Bay Golf Club. The New York Golf Club is Matt Fitzpatrick, Ricky Fowler, Xander Schauffele. The roster for the Bay Golf Club is Wyndham Clark, Shane Lowry, and Ludwig Aubert. So you got big names that did commit to Tiger and Rory's little project here. So ownership, a lot of teams that have owners, I believe. The guy, the Mets owner, or the ex-Mets owner, Cohen, is still the Mets owner, owns the New York Golf Club. The Bay Golf Club is Mark Lasry, who is the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, co-owner, and Steph Curry, part of this. So you got some big names and big name owners in sports and big culture figures that are part of this thing.
Yeah. The Atlanta Drive will be Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Billy Horschel, and Lucas Glover. And guys, Cantlay and Horschel are both on the same team with the 40-second shot clock. I can't wait to see. This is amazing to see how they play in that one. The Boston Common Golf Club is Rory McIlroy, Keegan Bradley, Adam Scott, and Hideki Matsuyama. The Jupiter Links Golf Club is Tiger Woods, Max Homa, Tom Kim, and Kevin Kisner. The LA Golf Club, as we talked about here, Colin Morikawa, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose, and Sahith Theegala. And then as New York and the Bay playing tonight, as Wes mentioned, the fourth member of those teams, Cam Young on the New York Golf Club, and then Minwoo Lee is the fourth member there of the Bay Golf Club with all of this. But it kicks off on Tuesday, and it'll run all the way until March the 4th. And so we'll see. Who knows? Maybe there's bets to be had. maybe we think it's dumb and we don't want to bet it, but maybe there's bets to be had. Who knows? It's all said and
I
done.
don't have answers for this stuff, but the names are stupid again. Just like Liv, like the names are stupid. They're trying to connect a city, but like there's maybe one or two guys on each team that actually like that connection works for. Like not all, like everybody could be on the Jupiter Lynx, right? Like, how many of these guys are actually living down there? Like it's all of them. Sorry, that's all I got.
Well, Kelley, what did you want them? What would you rather them do?
I don't know.
If they're listening to the podcast, what would you recommend?
That's what I'm saying. I don't really have any ideas. How many of these guys are living? What's Atlanta Drive though? Like, what am I supposed to get that? Like, none of these guys are living in Atlanta.
It's not exactly the cliques against the Smash or whatever these.
That's what I was saying, Wes. I'll hate on all golf team names. All right, I'm still getting used to teams. Okay, sorry. If it's not USA versus Europe or something, I don't understand.
The four aces, yes.
It's Atlanta's close to
Horsham, Florida. It's like an
They
SEC
pull
thing. Okay, Sure.
Yeah, it's probably just like an SEC type thing or whatever it is. But anyway, we'll certainly talk about that and what we saw tonight on the next version of the podcast here. All right, without further ado, guys, if you haven't, again, I'm going to remind you one last time. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. Do appreciate the support and helping us grow this thing here. Kelley, what ended up on your card this week?
4 outrights, and that's it. I don't know if I love any of these. Having checked her out, though, I know I share at least a couple with one Wes Reynolds after I saw his article today. So I guess that makes me feel better because I was a little hesitant with all of these guys. Okay, first up, Tom Kim, 20-1. Man, this price just immediately jumped off the board to me, and I couldn't just avoid it. I still think you're getting a good number on a very good golfer in this field. This is actually a better field than when we typically see at the Sony Open. So actually pretty decent this year. But look, he's had a lot of mixed results kind of end of last season, second at the Hero World Challenge, second in a Korea Championship, but he's also missed 2 cuts in the fall. So, I'm not trying to draw too much of what he did during the fall and late in the summer because I think that can screw you up a little bit. But, we know where he's at, good on approach, 9th in this field last 36 rounds in par 4 scoring, 8th in driving accuracy. And if I'm really putting a premium on who's going to keep it in the fairway, who's going to get it up on the green, he kind of checked all the boxes. We'll see where his putting's at. I mean, this is a guy who used to be a little bit better putter, who struggled a little bit more with that during last season. So I'm really interested to see what he looks like with the putter this week.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about Tom Kim, and I'm glad that you said it's like an outright bet for you. I think Tom Kim, until we see otherwise, is like, we view him as a spike player and you bet him in outrights, but like he isn't like your top 20 bet, because it's like he's either on or he's not, right? Like, so he's either missing cuts or like finishing 56th or 47th or whatever it is or something like that, or he's like in the top 5, right? And so it's like, I like playing him as a spike player, but I don't think he's the guy that you want to mix in your placement bets or anything like that. Until we see, who knows? I mean, again, like until further notice, maybe he proves me wrong, but at least is what we know of him currently. I wouldn't put him in that.
I think that's a good call, Matt. And to follow form, I think my entire card probably checks off that list of guys that spike it and outright might get home. I don't know if you want to consistently be rolling with top 20s on him right now, though. Next up would be one young Luke Clinton. I'm gonna go with him. Matt, I know you were all over him when he came onto the scene last year. Look, I just think we're buying high at the beginning of the season. Maybe we're buying low. We just don't know enough with Clanton yet, I think, to really make that call. So 30, you're finding mid-30s on him right now out there in this field. I'm willing to bet on this kid. I mean, it's 4 top 10s in the 8 times he's teed it up on the tour. So I'll roll with an outright on him. If you just
remember, if you're playing one and done, guys, he's starting out as an amateur. Yeah. So So don't do it yet. He might turn pro at some, but whatever. He's starting out as an amateur. So
yeah, Wes, how does that work now? Because I'm still used to the Q school days. Like this is so I saw something. He needs 3 more points to qualify or to grab his PGA Tour card. What the hell is a point? Am I putting you on the spot? Sorry.
Well, no, I know what you're talking about here because remember, it was that temporary membership. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Remember, that's what Ludwig got.
Yeah.
Or Ludwig was PGA Tour U, I'm sorry. But there was another big name player that did get the special temporary exemption. So I'm actually trying to find that.
No, I'm sorry. I'll let you find it. Maybe you can follow back up with it. I'll go through the rest of my card.
Rob Bolton, by the way, is usually very good with that. Rob Bolton Golf on Twitter, I believe, works for PGAtour.com, keeps in track of all that stuff. Oh, okay, here it is. The PGA Tour U, which Ludwig got on the tour, I believe, out of Texas Tech a couple years ago. He has 17 accelerated points. I have no idea what accelerated points are, but as of after the RSM Classic, which was the season finale in November on the PGA Tour, that he was only 3 points away from membership. So he's maybe close, guys. He's maybe close. We don't really know. I'm not sure. You might want to check at PGAtour.com how many sponsor exemptions he would need or the invites, but all that criteria is broken down.
The biggest note, though, is what Matt said, and that is correct. If you are in one and dones, do not select Luke Clanton this week. That is the biggest thing I can tell you. But no
matter where he appears in your models, don't play him in one and done. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No matter where he appears, and he was number one in a couple of the things that I ran. So that no matter where he appears, you are absolutely right. All right, next one up on the list. This is a little bit of nod to you, Wes, because I don't know if I was going to play him until I did actually see him in your write-up, is Austin Eckroat. Kind of the surprise pop in my model this week that I kind of went through numbers after numbers, and it was like, all right, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. I don't know if I'm in love with this play yet. Saw Wes was on him, though, too. And a great note from you, because I did not have this written down. Where he had a lead here, right, after 36 holes last year, which gets easily forgotten if you're just looking at recent results. So great note from Wes. As always, head over to VSiN.com and check out Wes's write-ups for each one of these events. But, last 36 rounds, if you're looking at that, fourth in total driving, accurate guy off the tee, eighth in strokes gained at YLI here, has played here well before. We talked about last season. Not the best approach player in the field, which I'm not loving that when we're so iron dependent this week. But interested to see what he could do, and really did kind of pop in the models that I ran. And then another guy, I guess like Luke Clanton in multiple ways, because he's a Florida State Seminole, Daniel Berger. I'm going to go with Berger here. We'll see if we can get Berger to spike here early in the season. T7 here in 2021, multiple rounds that he's played here, so a lot of experience on this course. Really interested to see what we get out of Berger this year. Last year we saw him come back from injury and struggled with the putter early in the season. Then end of the season, the irons were starting to give way a little bit as the flat stick was getting better. So really interested to see what he brings. But we know he's accurate off the tee, and that's another big thing we're looking at this. That's one of the biggest things we're looking at this week. So if he's able to get the irons together, if he's looking like he's in better form than we saw at the end of last season, I think you're looking at a good player for this week. So did bet him outright as well. Last 36 rounds, 6th in driving accuracy, 12th in par 4 scoring, 23rd strokes gained off the tee, 1st in good drives gained. So kind of checks all those boxes. This is another guy. I don't really know if I'm buying too high on him right now or too low, because I think we're going to know a lot better about where Berger's at in a few months.
Yeah,
that's it. 4 outrights for me. That's it. But just kind of.
It's funny because I have two of those names written down here as that I was going to talk to you guys about as to what to do, which was Luke Clanton and Daniel Berger. They were two guys that ranked really high in the model for me, and so I'm trying to figure out what to do with them. Not on the card quite yet. Definitely will be in some fashion. I went down and looked as to why Eckroat didn't rate out for me, and he's on y'all's card, and I think it's like I said. So I went in and put a pretty heavy emphasis on bogey avoidance, like I said.
Yeah.
And so
the short course stuff could pop too,
which helps, I think, push him down 101st in this field in bogey avoidance over the last, again, I put in 60 rounds or something like that. But again, you mentioned spike player, dude. If he can avoid the bogeys, then is certainly going to be in contention. But I was wondering, like, why the hell did he not pop for me? And I think that must be the reason that it pushed him down.
Yeah, Wes, I don't know if it was same for you, but it was just like he was at everything that I was factoring in heavily this week. He was just above average or a little bit more significant than that, but above average in everything, but kind of not dominant in anything that I looked at. So, we'll see if it all comes together.
Yeah, look, and I'll just spoil, he's on my card at 40 to 1 as well. He draws it off the tee, which I think that is good here at Waialae. That's usually the preferred shot off the tee. Won twice last season. He won for me in Mexico, actually, in late November at the Worldwide Technology, where I dubbed him Austin Eckgoat because that broke a little bit of a drought for me. But yeah, T15 last week at the Century. I think this course is just better for him in terms of like the facsimile, like how his game would be. Remember, he also won at PGA National, which has had some correlation here. Some guys that have won at PGA National have also won here. So it's not something I put a huge emphasis on, but I do tend to look at like course correlations and say, okay, who has won at similar courses and if there's a little bit of a pattern here.
All right, Wes, so we know Eckroat's on there. Who else made your card?
Tom Kim, you could still get him at 20. He actually went up at Circa today at about 24 to 1, and that's where I grabbed. He ended 2024 where it was a disappointing season, but was runner-up at the Genesis Championship in South Korea to his fellow South Korean, Benny An, was also runner-up to his good buddy Scotty Scheffler, as he usually is, like he was for me at the Travelers when I had Tom Kim. Remember when the protesters got on the green there in the playoff, unfortunately another runner-up. He was also runner-up at the Grant Thornton, which is the mixed pairs where the PGA guys pair with the LPGA players. So played good golf at the end of the year. The one thing you worry about, it's like, oh man, he's playing really good golf, and then you have a few week break where you're not in competition. But he missed the cut last year. He had a poor putting week, but on these shorter, like ball striking heavy courses, like we've seen at Sedgefield for the Wyndham, or you've seen a couple times out here at TPC Summerlin for the Shriners, he tends to focus. And I just think good player, really good price. I thought Tom Kim 20 or better was an absolute take. And then going with another guy who's been in pretty hot form, 28 to 1, Matt McNeely, who finally broke through. Of course, I wasn't on him after I bet him all these damn times at the RSM Classic, won at the season finale. T8 last week in Kapalua, top 5 in approach and GIR, which is really good because McNeely, the approach game, the iron game was kind of his weakness, and now it's becoming a strength. You know the guy can roll it on the greens, even though he was net zero in putting. I think he putts better this week. He's usually up there in terms of the strokes gained putting because that's had to bail him out for some really poor to mediocre iron play, which all of a sudden isn't poor or mediocre anymore. So McNeely, 28 to 1. Eckroat, I mentioned, 40 to 1. A guy played last week who ended up finishing top 15, even though it was top 10 in ball striking. I went with Sepp Straka at 60 to 1, who's also won at PGA National. He's got 2 top 5s at Harbour Town. That's the RBC Heritage. I think that has some carryover here at Waialae. He's very good on these shorter layouts. One that Kelley mentioned, I didn't get the 80, but I got 65. Daniel Berger, who I think really struggled for most of the season, and then had to absolutely rally late in the fall. I was actually on him at the RSM where he was tied for second behind McNeely, rather. He had to rally and make all these cuts to get his PGA Tour card to stay in that 125. He gets inside the top 100. He's won on these shorter courses before. He's won at Colonial, runner-up at PGA National, runner-up last fall at Sea Island, so I think he's comfortable here. And then the bomb I played this week, I was considering actually a couple different Canadians, one being Adam Svensson, who nearly missed my card, but I went with this fellow Canadian, Nick Taylor, at 115 to 1. He, 7th here each of the last 2 years, 3rd from the bottom last week at Kapalua for putting, but these are flatter greens, and putting has more variance than any stat in golf as we do this. So Nick Taylor, I think, probably putts a little bit better, and he's usually very good early in the year, as evidenced by him winning at Phoenix. So he's usually good, I think, in the first part of the year. You always kind of get those guys that are really good maybe on a West Coast swing, and then really start to pop when they get into California. I think maybe he pops a little early this week. Nick Taylor, 115 to 1.
Well, I mean, I could just go ahead and pull the trigger on Berger and make it a pod play then, because like I said, so 6th overall in my model was Daniel Berger. Now, again, I zoomed way out, right? And so obviously I'm capturing a lot of the good Daniel Berger as well, right?
Uninjured Daniel Berger.
Yeah, to get him into that. But yeah, 6th overall in the model for this week was Daniel Berger. So pretty interesting. Might have to get there. For what it's worth, Hideki Matsuyama was won by a mile in mine, and it wouldn't surprise me if he won 2 weeks in a row. So like but I just can't play. We talk about this all the time, right? Like we can't make money playing single digit dudes, like unless it's Scotty Scheffler. Like you're probably never going to see me on a single digit guy, most likely. But
so I'm glad you brought this up because we didn't really talk about the top of the board. Yes, Decky is my top rated guy across the board. Not even
by
really.
a mile. So mine spits out like a score or whatever and stuff like that. And like he is 10 points higher than the next closest guy as far as like what value he is to this tournament.
Yeah, the one, going back to Tom Kim though, that was the one where he just kind of jumped off the page as soon as I saw his odds. I just couldn't believe he was that much longer than Corey Connors was, who's kind of the second guy on there. And even when I ran numbers, they kind of backed that up too. I was just, I don't know. I'm not as high on Connors, I guess, as the odds makers are this week.
Yeah, like Russell Henley was up there, obviously, on the model as well. Won here in 2013. I was actually on him when he finished runner-up to Matsuyama. He was also T4 here last year. Keegan Bradley, I think, was up there. I was on him. I've been on a lot of runner-ups at this event.
I thought I was firing on Keegs for sure this weekend. Yeah. Man, I just he didn't bow for me at all. I was getting excited about Berger and Keegan. Those are like my two favorite guys.
Yeah, remember he and Benny On were in the playoff, and Grayson Murray, the late Grayson Murray, makes that long birdie and won the playoff. I think Grayson was like 400-1 here last year, so a real bomb of a price. And then the mid tier, McNeely is 28-1. The 30 guys that I saw were McIntyre, Kurt Kitayama, Sahith Theegala, Siwoo, Taylor Pendriff, top 10 here last year. I've seen him tipped a little bit in some of the articles and some of our colleagues in the space.
Yeah, I also have Mav McNeely is my first, is like the shortest guy on the card for me. Just a dude that just really kind of across the board was stuff that I was looking for. Kind of shocking to me, actually, that he was as good across the board as he was. And so
he might be putting it all together right now. Like Wes kind of hinted at, man. We might be starting to see Mav really put it all together here, and he could be pretty damn good this year.
I think he feels confident because, if you know his background, is his dad, Scott McNeely, is the founder of Sun Microsystems. So he is a very wealthy young man where it's kind of like he just played golf just to play. And he just needed that motivation, I think, to be like, hey, I can be a really great professional touring golfer and have some passion if I just put a little bit more work in. And I think you're starting to see him do that.
Wes Reynolds, everybody. Sun Microsystems. What you know about that, Matt? What you know about Sun Microsystems?
I don't know, but I can tell you what I know about the Woo, and Siwoo is the next one that's on my my card here. Look, the Woo just high up in the model here. I know every time we talk about shorter positional courses and all that, Siwoo always comes up, and he always ends up popping in the model every single time we talk about the short positional courses and things like that. But it's for a reason, because he plays them really well, and so
he's not as long off the tee as everybody else, as most of the other guys. So yeah, his game just naturally kind of makes sense here. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one on my list, it kind of fits the same boat. Like if you go in and look at these guys that have played short, easy courses very well, JT Poston is like right up there with dudes that have played short, easy courses at a very, very high level, right? And this is not to say that he's not a good golfer. He is, but like he really likes playing the easier, shorter courses. And so Poston, a guy that I did not expect to have on the card this week, but a dude that ended up on the card for me.
Another Sedgefield winner, by the way, at the Wyndham Championship.
Well, and the other one I was going to bring up about Poston was, man, he was, remember the beginning of the season last year for him? He was on an absolute tear before kind of fizzling out midseason. Then he kind of got it back together at the end. So, interesting guy. I mean, he was, I'm just pulling it up right now. T5 at the Century last year, 6th at the Sony, T11 at the Amex, T20 at Pebble Beach. I mean, he was the start of the season was amazing for him last year.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can't rekindle some of that from him. Two others that, again, it was just where they end up in the model. I dug in a little bit further a while. So Davis Thompson is the next outright for me.
I got close betting him last week.
Yeah, another dude that if you go across, Kelly, where you said he's just kind of like average to above average in every one of the stats that you put in, that's kind of where he lives. The only thing that he's not inside, the top 40, it looks like to me, is kind of like good drive percentage. But I mean, look, again, he might be taking less than driver, right, on a lot of these as it is. And so I was able to look past that, given how highly he rated in all of the other categories for me. Final one for me, number 2 overall in the model, boys, Ben Griffin.
Yeah.
I almost played him. He was actually one of my last leave-offs.
Number 2 overall in the model. I was blown away. But you go across, and it's just like, again, zooming way out. I mean, it's just approach game top 10, putting on Bermuda top 7. He has great course history here. He's top 20 on easy courses. He's top 20 on short courses. Inside the top 25 on bogey avoidance, like all these different things. It's just a guy that just really did pop in the model for me. And so 2nd overall for Ben Griffin, which I thought was pretty wild. So those are my 5: Matt McNeely, Siwoo, JT Poston, Davis Thompson, Ben Griffin. I think, you know what, so that we have a pod play, I'm going to go ahead and add in Daniel Berger.
Yeah.
It'll be good. It'll be fun for us
go.
to all. Yeah, we'll have a nice little pod sweat here in this one. So I'll put Berger in there. And I will have Clanton in some way, shape, or form. Maybe if some head-to-heads come out, something like that, or if maybe just in a placement market type deal. But Clanton was too high in the model. He's in the side of the top 10. He's 8th overall. Small sample size, obviously, because he doesn't have the stats that these guys have. So where most of these guys, like I said, I'm rating on 60 rounds. Clanton comes in at 29 rounds because it just, all the categories that I put in only fit so many rounds that these guys play or whatever. So a little bit, about half the sample size of most of these guys that are in the model, but still super, super strong results and super high numbers up there for Clanton. So I do have to agree with you there, Kelley Bydlon, on Luke Clanton. But man, guys, glad to have golf season back. I'm fired up. I'm glad that we're adding a video element to the podcast here. And then also, as always, you can get Wes's written stuff over at VSiN.com. So even more reason to become a VSiN Pro subscriber if you haven't done so already. So VSiN.com/subscribe to take advantage of that. We'll talk some TGL next week when we come back, see what we think about that. Maybe there's a bettable element to it. Who knows? We'll figure it out. I just read there's something called the Hammer, where you can go in. It's basically like if you're playing a Saturday morning game, you can like press, like you can basically press, Kelley.
Yeah,
like
I saw that.
Like you're able to press on the TGL. So hell yeah, man, let's do it. Oh, are you giving stuff away for free? What are you doing?
Sorry, I'm still getting used to directing this video product. Sorry,
Kelley's sitting here costing Bill and Brian money.
I'm just trying to give a little teaser, a little sample of Wes Reynolds' written product. Right?
I was like, and we don't want to be costing them money, man, because that can trickle down.
So, there we go. So they were just back that off a little bit there, Kelley. That was a teaser, guys. So that's what it is.
Right.
You can go over to the site, and that's what you get whenever you take a look at
you
that.
You can pause it and read the first paragraph for free if you want. Wes wrote a whole lot more.
Yeah, where's Wes just talking about like his weekend at the beginning? It's not even like anything about the deal. He's like, yeah, so I had a good weekend. It was nice, whatever, watch some games. It was fun. All right, guys, again, as always, appreciate you guys supporting this. Subscribe, rate, review on the audio side. Hit that subscribe button down below. Absolutely free here on the video side. For Kelley, for Wes, I'm Matt. Good luck on all your Sony bets.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.